A museum is a non-profit, permanent institution in the service of society and its development. Museums are democratizing, inclusive, and polyphonic spaces for critical dialogue about the past and the future. Institutions need to look beyond simply presenting history and artifacts.
Should museums present information as truth and factual? Take a look at the Museum of Jurassic Technology in Los Angeles. There's no dinosaurs here or technology as one might think of it. Here the word Jurassic implies something archaic or old. Technology today allows everyone to absorb plenty of information, so much information that it's hard to pick out what is true and what is false, arguably making the vast knowledge base as useless as being ignorant of it. In a labyrinth of work by obscure artists, innovators, and thinkers, backlit by a mysterious, dimly lit atmosphere, what is fact or fiction no longer matters. It is just what's there and what is not there.
Should museums omit the emotions and experiences of history to maintain objectivity?
Museums tell stories. They share information of the world in the form of story.
History would not exist without the experiences and emotions of the people that lived through those significant moments of time. So why is it typical for museums to portray people and information separately and not as a unit? The dissociation of people and information has caused us to view American history only by its highlights. This is very evident in African American history. The National Museum of African American History and Culture encourages people to bear witness to the significant events that define African American history and experience those moments for themselves.
For me, the African American experience is an experience not of tragedy, but of unbelievable belief. Belief in themselves, belief in an America that often didn't believe in them.
The Slavery and Freedom exhibit is one of the most emotional and impactful experiences that the museum possesses, and is successful in recreating the atmospheric qualities during that period. Establishing an emotional connection through the exhibit is vital to having a greater understanding of the events that actually occurred and creates the foundation needed to understand the evolution of African American history.
Is it enough for museums to focus only on subjects that are comfortable for their audiences?
The most engaging, most interesting time periods in history are those that show us the full range of the human condition, from the very worst to the very best.
At the Venda Museum in Culver City, California, the history and subjects are anything but comfortable. Visitors come to this museum, located inside a former U.S. National Guard armory, to learn about the history and culture hidden from us for so long behind the Iron Curtain. The relatively small space is designed to be adaptable for specific exhibits, but still mostly open to allow visitors to move freely through the space.
We want to be a museum that, rather than tells people how it was, we want to provide the stimulation, and we want to inspire people to come here and find their own path in their own way.
The museum is structured around a single space for rotating exhibits of various aspects of life during the Cold War. Some focus on the political tension and need for protest art, while others highlight the more mundane and human aspects of the culture. Aisles of glass shelving house the rest of the museum's collections, transparent for all to see and experience along with the exhibit. The Venda Museum embraces the uncomfortable nature of its subject matter and in turn encourages that human experience.
Can the gravity of history be fully communicated through artifacts alone? In some ways, yes. It is critical to recognize that the way objects are arranged can evoke emotion. The stacking of clothing, for example, in the Anne Frank exhibit at the Museum of Tolerance in Los Angeles, might provoke mental images of the children who have worn the clothing. Those children are now gone, and the clothing is all what's left. That is a powerful sentiment. Yet, in other ways, emotion needs to come from beyond just the artifacts. Sound, for example, is a curatorial technique that, if applied correctly, can enhance the experience.
Our little room looked very bare at first, with nothing on the walls. But thanks to Daddy, who had brought my film star collection and picture postcards on beforehand, I have transformed the walls into one gigantic picture. This makes it look much more cheerful.
Emotion can come from symbolism too. A chestnut tree represents Anne's yearning for escape. In the exhibit, the chestnut tree is implied through the staircase. The clothing, as mentioned before, transitions from colorful to dull as the exhibit progresses through Anne's life. This layer of symbolism and color change subconsciously has an impact on the audience.
Is the institution responsible for giving a platform to typically underrepresented artists?
It's a community that sees itself through culture. I think of the museum as an institution that has deep, deep roots in the community.
Partnered with the city, the Studio Museum in Harlem has begun construction on a new facility designed by David Adjaye Architects. Finding themselves without a traditional space to hold the museum, they moved to the public sphere to do what they're known for, engaging the community. Typically, this has been through programs for people of all ages to participate, artist talks, or live performances. But, in the temporary absence of a permanent gallery space, this time they took art directly to the community in the form of installations throughout public spaces, parks, and libraries. One exhibition featured artist Chloe Bass, a native New Yorker who is interested in cultivating private reflection within public space. This is seen through 24 sign sculptures that pose questions to the viewer.
Institutional presence in public space can have a lot of different results, and it really depends on how you're doing it. And my hope is that we're doing it with not too heavy of a hand, so that this remains primarily the space for the people who are in it, and that they really feel like the art is here for them.
Institutions are a man-made construct, influenced by politics, culture, and economy. The more open the dialogue is around how these institutions operate and exist, the better they will become for everyone. The way we define museum will continue to change, along with our perception of institutions and culture as a whole.